All right, good morning, everyone. We are Wednesday, June 21st. This is actually the summer solstice. I think I said it was the 18th and 19th. I had made a mistake. Today is the summer solstice, or the evening of the summer solstice. So if you feel compelled to, a desire to, there is always some great summer solstice meditations available on YouTube, and more information about what the summer solstice is. I think most of us know it's like the longest day of the year, and the beginning of summer, which has some energetic and transit implications, and I guess we'll use the word consequences. So yeah, if that feels something like you need to check it out, I would encourage you to. We have been talking about this last few days about the ego, and what the I guess the ongoing messages that I've been receiving since being here in the mountains is, around the ego, and questions, right? And so, the question today is, what if we showed up in people's lives, in our own life, and to seek to understand versus seeking to be understood? And I've talked really briefly about this at one point in time here in the group, but I couldn't even tell you when it was. I just remember having that thought before, but there was more to it, today. And it's even in business, rather than seeking, to get something, right, from a client, meaning, right, whereas there's an exchange, there is a cash flow exchange often, or some sort of energetic exchange. But what instead we, seek to share versus seeking to receive. And not that receiving is wrong. So this is where the ego will kind of jump in and say, well, that's bullshit, because getting money, receiving money, getting paid for what your value is, getting paid for what you do, you have to do that. That's not wrong to want that, and that's correct. So it's not about the right or wrong, but if we entered into relationships, and so we have everything is a relationship. Everything could be a relationship, right? It can be a relationship in relationships, the relationship with the energy of your business, the relationship with the energy of money. What if you, instead of seeking to be understood, or seeking out abundance and prosperity, we talked about that, looking for it, rather than, it's there, that we actually don't have to look for it, but that's the illusion. That's the ego saying we have to look for it. What if you just, sit up a little bit taller and raise your hand and and emit the frequency of abundance, the frequency of prosperity. So then in that capacity, what you're doing is not seeking to get something, but seeking to the opportunity of, I guess, the sharing of. And what would happen if we could enter into any relationship, even a business transaction, with the openness of, I'm here to understand, I'm here to experience, I'm here to love, I'm here to accept, I'm here to share, right? But instead, we're often at an unconscious level, even maybe looking for something, right? We're wanting to receive something. Not right, not wrong. It's just how insidious it can be for us as the human being, because we're conditioned for that. What's in it for me? We're conditioned for that. Why would I go to that networking meeting? I'm not getting any business from it. Well, maybe, are you getting connection? Are you getting market research? Are you, right? Like, what, if you're not getting what you're there for, what are you getting, right? And then what are you seeking? Right? What's your your purpose of it? If your purpose was there to share, to understand, right, to connect, to build community, that's a bit of a different energy showing up. And so, in this in the book, in the world of but not of it, and I think I might have shared this part like at the end of yesterday, which is many imagine that being in the world but not of it means transcending the world and the ego and no longer being touched by the difficulties of the human condition. But that's not what this means. Rather, being in the world but not of it means that you fully embrace the world of form and embrace being human while knowing you are beyond all form. To do this, you have to first love the world, including your humanness. You have to do the opposite of what the ego does, which is reject the world. And I would even say a little bit more that to do this, you have to first love, and she includes it, including your humanness, but it's like you have to first love you, right? To first love your humanness, your imperfections, your perfections. I mean, it's easy to love the bright, shiny parts if it sometimes feels less or more difficult, to love the wounded parts, to love the manipulator, to love like the rebel, to love any of those roles that we play or any behaviors that we have. So the book, it's a female author, so I can't remember her name at the moment, but she says, rejecting, judging, or going to war with your human shortcomings is what keeps you separate from your divine self. So when you do those things, right? When you reject, when you judge, when you go to war with your shortcomings, you actually are identifying with your ego. The remedy is to become aware of the interplay between these two aspects of your ego and your divine self. Accept your human self. The instant you offer acceptance to your human self, you become your divine self. Because the only thing that can do this is the divine self. So the only thing that we can do is the divine, is that acceptance piece. Sorry. And so then, which brought me to this next point of there's no need to do away with our imperfections, right? What's needed is the correct way, or the correct relationship to imperfection. And then from the definition of like correct, which is one of acceptance, right? So correct not being like right or wrong, but in terms of discernment, right? And so what if we moved into acceptance? This makes it possible for us to reunite with the divine. And I think as the human species, there's this ebb and flow, right? I'm of ego, I'm of divine. I'm of ego, I'm of divine. And the more we move into acceptance, I think the more, for me at least, the more peace, the more serenity that is available. So I, kind of liken acceptance is the bridge. Acceptance is the bridge that takes you from our human conditioning, from suffering, right, into a state of freedom, which could look like love. Sacred love is how I would verbalize that. And then the challenge, though, can be, at least it was for me, the word acceptance. So it's like, if I accept this, that means I accept it and no transformation will happen, right? So if I accept my current situation in health, that means I kind of looked at acceptance as rolling over and just accepting okay, if this is all there is, then you kind of fuck it, right? And when I started to realize that acceptance didn't mean that there was no transformation, but acceptance was the first step for transformation. That the more I resist, the more it persists. So it goes back into the universal laws, right? What we resist persists. And so if I continue to fight against, reject the current situation, whatever that situation is, then I'm in resistance. And so then we had the opportunity to move into the universal law of non-resistance, which is, this is just yet another experience. And I may not, quote unquote, like the experience. So I can make a decision of creating a new experience. And first, I need to accept the current experience in order to, so that I can look at where is the transformation going to happen? What is required of me? What maybe parts of forgiveness is required, right? Because we want to, there's no need to do away with anything. I don't need to get rid of anything. That's that resistance again. So if I don't need to get rid of poverty, get rid of ill health, get rid of arguing, right? Get rid of, it could fill in the blank. If I don't have to get rid of, I'm moving into acceptance. And again, one of my experiences early on, and I think I'm starting to see sometimes how this is still, shows up in my life is, well, if I accept it, means I have to live with it, right? If I accept someone's behavior, I have to live with that behavior. No, you're accepting the situation. You're accepting the experience, right? Not the behavior. So we can move into this acceptance, which is the bridge that takes us from the human conditioning of suffering to the freedom and love of our divine nature, which really, really then is transforms everything, right? And so even the languaging is so important. What if we we enter into a business transaction, and let's say we enter into, I don't know, a marketing or sales, and we do our thing, and the outcome isn't what we desired, right? And we can move into this, do we resist it and be frustrated with ourselves, be angry with ourselves, be angry with Facebook's algorithm, do we moan, or do we go, oh, that's really interesting, that here's an experience that I'm having, I thought the outcome would be so much different, and so here's this outcome, I'll move into acceptance of the outcome. Once you move into that acceptance, it's my experience has been moving into the acceptance, and then all of the ways and means, all of the other opportunities to have that outcome transform opens up, right? But until then, it doesn't, right? It doesn't. And I'll even use my own personal situation with Rob, making a decision and accepting that it's not going to go, it's not where I want it to be, and it may never be, and then making a decision. Okay, I think this part of my life is complete, and just moving into this complete acceptance of, okay, what is that going to look like for me? And the moment, I made that decision a week ago. A week ago. And then drove here. And through conversation, Divine spoke to me through my interaction with my friend Tempo. And she brought so many other awarenesses, right, into play that I didn't see, because my ego is really strong. My ego is really strong in my relationship with Rob. So no wonder there's dissension. No wonder there's complications, right? No wonder there's no acceptance. And how can I expect Rob to show up in divine love if I'm not showing up in divine love? And so if I have an agenda going into the relationship, I want this from this person, right? I'm being mirrored back so many beautiful things. And so rather than acceptance, there's judgment. So how can I move into acceptance? Now, acceptance of the experience, not even necessarily his behavior or my behavior, but acceptance of the experience. This is the experience I'm having. What is it showing me? Right? What is it showing me? And if I use the question, this is the experience I'm having, why am I having it? I'm like, because he's an asshole, right? I'm not important. He's being a dick, right? And that's all ego. There's no divine acceptance. There's nothing about divine at all. And so what times in my life have I shown up in relationship, business, more personal relationships, where it's ego driven? And I can look back at every single time in relationship, in any relationship, right? With my body, with money, with another human being, with the energy of my business. Whenever I show up that way, there's pain. There is discomfort. There is anything but peace and serenity. And so for you, asking yourself, what parts of yourself or what parts of your life, right, in relationships, and I'm just talking about we have a relationship with business, so you can keep it in business context. Are you not accepting? Are you in resistance? It can't be this way because I don't want it to be, right? Right. I'm not, and we can look at that from like the business perspective of, because we're all in business to create revenue so that we can have a life and a lifestyle that we desire. Right? The question that I have, and the question that I've been pondering is, egos, I'm not trying to get rid of my ego, but really contemplating that desire for changing the world. Like my desire to live my purpose is divinely guided, right? My desire for the financial piece may be both divine and ego. And it doesn't matter. My point is, it doesn't matter. It's just to be in awareness. It's okay if we desire material things. We're not meant to not have material things, right? Some religions, right, would disagree with that, right? But from a spiritual perspective, we're meant to, if it's a desire, we're meant to create and manifest it. If it's a want, that can be ego-driven, and that can be maybe more difficult to create, right? Because unless we understand the egoic drive behind the want, if you understand what the egoic drive behind the want is, I, in my personal point of view, believe it's still possible to create and manifest it. That's my personal point of view. I think lots of people, not lots, some people might disagree with that. But as I said, we're not trying to get rid of the ego. We're trying to create a balance. We're trying to balance what it's like to be a human being, right? With a soul. We're a spiritual being, right? Having a human experience. That's the balance. A spiritual being having a human experience. What experiences does divine desire for you, and what experiences does your ego desire for you? One's not right versus wrong. It's just different. And so I think the benefit is if we can be in awareness of, oh, that's like a totally egoic driven want, cool. Right? Cool. Nothing wrong with that, right? And that's the part of learning to release the language of this is right or this is wrong. There is no right or wrong. There's just the isness of the experience. So, and just knowing that if we're tapped into the egoic thought stream, like, right, the intellect, which we do. We need our intelligence. We need our intellect. We need our conscious thoughts. We're conditioned. We're working with our conditioning. We're trying to maybe decondition ourselves. But that's the fun. That can be the fun. But if you're constantly judging yourself that what you want or this experience is bad, then in that judgment, your experience is going to be harder, you know. But if we just move into this, like I said in the beginning, if we just moved into looking to be understood versus I'm seeking to understand. If we can move out of I'm looking to be loved to I'm looking to love. If we move from I'm looking to be accepted to I'm looking to accept. If we move from I'm looking, to belong to I'm looking to, right, share belonging, have people feel belonged. And that 1 millimeter shift, can change the world. And think about it even think about it from a business perspective, even in like marketing, right? And sales. Why do we do marketing? Why do we have sales conversations? To develop a business, right? To create revenue, to create the lifestyle that we desire, right? And the lifestyle that we desire is, there's a knowing, I think, for a lot of us that we know that we're not meant to be in suffering. And so cash flow helps alleviate the suffering that can alleviate the suffering that we may experience. But the reality is, whether you have $1 billion in the bank or you have $1,000 in the bank, your experience is the same, right? Our pals, the poo, are the same. Billionaire, right? Non-billionaire. And so it's to look at that whole situation and like, what is this really about? Do we feel dissension? Do we feel uncomfortable? Do we feel discomfort? Do we feel, because we're not living our life on purpose, with purpose, that the underlying reason for our actions is to get something? Not wrong, but just be aware, right? Why do we enter into a relationship? Business relationship, love relationship, familial relationship? Because the ego wants something. Right? Can we provide that for ourselves first? Can we understand first before we seek to understand? To seek to be understood? Can we understand ourselves first? Can we love ourselves first? Can we accept ourselves first? Can we make these decisions so that we're in a powerful state versus in a painful state? Because the moment we realize that, I'm in a painful state, so that's ego driven. Right? It is so simple. I don't feel good. There's possibility of ego. And I shouldn't say it's simple. For me, as an energetic being who feels the energy of the world and feels the energy of other people, the first question I always ask myself, is this mine? I feel uncomfortable. Is this mine, or does this belong to somebody else? Most of the time, in my personal experience, for me and other empaths, it's not ours. So just imagine that one shift. If you wake up and you feel off, and if you went into this deep dive of what's wrong with me, everything in my life is good, I don't understand what's going on, you just go down a spiral of the pit of hell, because you're trying to figure something out that there's nothing to figure out. But if you just is this mine? No, it's not mine. Okay, cool. Am I meant to do anything with it? I mean, that's often what I ask now. Am I meant to do anything with this? Am I meant to know anything about this? About half the time now, for me personally, it's like, yeah, you're meant to tap into the discomfort because the world is feeling this way. Your community is feeling this way. So if you tap into it, you can share a message. But that's part of my life purpose, is to tap into what's going on and then share the message. But before I knew that, I just kept on feeling like that I was like totally fucked up, that there was something so horribly wrong with me because there was no apparent reason for me not to feel good. But on a regular basis, I woke up feeling discomfort. And with that one shift, and then the second shift being, okay, if I'm still in a painful state, that's my ego. So what is this life experience experience trying to share with me? What am I meant to do with this, right? Okay, if I'm moving into acceptance, acceptance is the bridge. Great. Acceptance is the bridge to transformation. Awesome. And then, so what's next? Right? And learning to stop asking myself, for me, stop asking how am I supposed to do this, right? Because how for me personally can be a spinning question. So I'll ask it, but it will depend on the context. And a better question for Ranchelle is, what else is possible? What is my next step? What are you trying to tell me, God? Right? I have confusion. A confused mind can't make a decision. I would like clarity. So provide me clarity. Show me, provide me. Right? So it's an ongoing dialogue with your divine self. And I say your divine self because I think one of the conditionings that we've had from religion is that God is this separate entity in the chair in the sky, and you have conversation with it, and then God makes something happen for you. But what if instead there's no chair in the sky? There is the oneness, and you are divine. You're God, you're Goddess, you're Allah, you're Buddha. We're all connected, we're all one, so there is no separateness. And we've heard that in religion, but I don't believe that it's taken like that's blasphemous, right? I'm sure there are a few people rolling over in their grave when I say that. You are divine. You are God. We are a collective of divine consciousness. Right? We're a fractal energy of divine. And so if we're a fractal energy of divine and you follow that all the way through, knowing then that divine has your back, and you're not looking at God as a separate entity that grants you wishes or doesn't grant you wishes based on if you're being a good girl or a bad girl, and you just move into this, what else is possible? If I'm uncomfortable with the situation that I'm living in, it's just a sign that there's something else possible. That's it. And that if I'm uncomfortable in a business, if I'm like wherever we have discomfort, it's just a beacon of light saying there's an opportunity for you to have to accept this experience, to love yourself through this experience. But there's also an opportunity for you to have another experience. And all we have to do is shift the belief around it, be open to the message, right? Be open to the message and shift the belief. And I don't know what it will be like for anybody else, but what I became really aware of this week, being in a different situation and being around different people, that I've received and so many messages this week. Now, I know in my heart it's because I was ready to hear it, right? Because I'm ready to do something different. But I also am sensing that part of the opportunity we have is to place ourselves in situations with people that we haven't spent time with or been around, because each person has their own auric field. And I believe that there's messages in the auric field for all of us. I don't think that's just like, because I'm a reflector, that's my gift. I believe that everyone can access that. And so if you, perhaps like a lot of people that I've been around lately, through COVID, started to withdraw and stopped spending time with other people, strangers, right? Creating new relationships, even if it's like acquaintance relationships, there's gold there if you're willing. And it's okay if you're not willing, but if you're willing, there's this huge opportunity, right, to create new experiences. So if you're having Groundhog Days, perhaps part of what can happen is you can create a new experience. And maybe part of that is doing something different. So taking our physical bodies and doing something different. And that's a whole other, like, there's a whole bunch of like little messages there for us, but I've been told that's for the next few days. So, all right. Love you so very much. Thank you for joining me today. And I'll see you tomorrow. I'll be back in my regular abode tomorrow. And we'll have, it'll be awesome. The audios will be uploaded tomorrow when I get back. So, okay. Bye. Love you. Good morning, beautiful.
Good morning.
How are you?
Wow. How do you do those? Are you on video?
Yeah, I'm on Zoom.
And can you see the other people?
Yeah.